Okay, Rex, it looks like I'm recording.
Okay, so you can switch off the recording for now. We'll only start in about 4 minutes. Otherwise, we're going to have all this jabber. Okay, just
Yeah.
check if you can admit people.
Let me do this one.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Fine. All right,
Okay.
that's okay. So that means I can leave with ease.
Yeah. No, that's
Okay.
fine. Okay,
Okay.
good luck with the other workshop, Rex.
Yeah, I'll stay on for a bit. I'm only going to open that platform at past.
Okay, perfect. Oh, great
Mm.
stuff. All right.
Okay. I think
Right.
everybody's got their links now. Guys, I'm sorry for the confusion. We're having a bit of trouble with our other platform. That's why you received the cancellation email from the platform and then the link for the Teams meeting for today. So we do apologize profusely from our side. We are trying desperately with the go-to people to fix the platform for us. So for any other meetings, but we will keep you in the loop if you've enrolled or enlisted for any of the other workshops. If we do need to move it, we'll send similar emails with the Teams links for those if the need arises.
Ricky, I'm back.
Okay. Right, we're going to start in about 3 minutes. Yeah, Anita, I see you're coping okay with the
Yeah.
admitting.
No,
Okay,
absolutely
perfect.
fine.
Okay.
I'm leaving the recording on though, Vicky.
Yeah, that's fine.
Don't worry about
That's
it.
fine.
It's only 2 minutes.
Mm. This little girl is so cute on the PowerPoint.
Looks so happy, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So involved in her reading.
Yesterday we had the dyslexia workshop
Oh,
and
yeah.
that went super, super well. The people, I think the teachers are quite hungry for this type of thing. We had autism on Monday. So it's inclusion the entire week. I
Okay.
think tomorrow we're doing
Reading, no, it's Leave No
catch
Learner
them all,
Behind, I
leave,
think.
yeah, leave them, yeah, leave no learner behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who do you get to do the dyslexia one?
So there's a gentleman by the name of Jan Viljoen. He's with dyslexia. He's a dyslexia expert, but I'll tell you what he is now. He's a therapist, sort of
Is he
counselor, you know?
not a psychologist?
No.
Basically to give the teachers tips and tricks of how to cope with in the classroom and how to really help these learners with practical things. Not
Yeah.
understanding dyslexia so much,
Yeah.
from like a parent's point of view,
Yeah.
but it's more
He's
to make things easier in the classroom.
He calls himself a dyslexia correction practitioner. But Anita, it's 2 o'clock now, so let's start the session. I'll leave it over to you.
To Janet.
No, to you. You can start the session. Sorry, Anita.
But I've started the session, haven't I?
No, you need to welcome everybody, Anita.
Nobody told me I must do all these jobs. Right, everybody, welcome to our session today. We've got Janet. Janet, I don't know much about you. I don't know if you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, but yes, welcome and enjoy the session. I'm handing over to you, Janet.
Good, thanks, Anita. Welcome, everybody. Lovely that you're here with us today. And yes, this is a very, very interesting topic, very broad. I've been very involved with this topic for many, many years. And so to kind of condense everything into 1 hour is kind of crazy. So I hope I hope you'll all be able to take something from this. The online meeting etiquette, we spoke with Ricky and Alette a while ago, and we decided if you want to ask questions to just wait until there's sort of like a lull in the conversation and then ask your questions. And I can't see if you put your hands up. So you can just unmute and you can just speak, and let's talk about your questions, I think, as we go along. Okay, so this is me. So I was the director of our Literacy Development Research Unit at Cape Peninsula University of Technology. I retired in 2021. So yes, I've been teaching for 42 years. I had 9 years in special schools, and a lot of this interest developed there actually. And I've had 25 years of teaching teachers at the education faculty of CPUT. I got my doctoral degree in 2006, and in 2019 I was inaugurated as a full professor with a C2 NRF rating. My teaching and research focus is on literacy. I am the editor-in-chief of the Reading and Writing Journal, so I do quite a lot of work with literacy. I was also the inclusive education lecturer at CPUT. I do a lot of work with critical thinking, digital storytelling, and philosophy for children. At the moment, I'm leading 3 research projects: a Reading for Meaning project, a Sazonki supervision mentoring project, and a critical thinking project. Over my years, I've published over 60 articles, supervised 4 doctoral students to completion. 1 doctoral student graduated last night, which is very exciting, and 13 master's students. And they're all in literacy. And if you want to get in touch with any of them, please do a Google search, type in my name, and all my papers will pop up if you're interested in furthering your knowledge in this field. So this is my presentation for this afternoon. I'm going to discuss general barriers to learning, looking at the PEARLS results, which I think we all know about, learning to read versus reading to learn. And we're going to look at reading skills. We're looking at higher order comprehension activities, how to debrief our lessons, and some references. So the first barrier to learning that we're going to look at is the intrinsic barriers. So those are neurological, behavioral, emotional, intellectual. So those issues are to do with the brain. And many of them may develop from genetics. It may develop from accidents. At Vista Nova, where I was teaching for many years, we had motor vehicle accident students coming into our schools, and that would manifest in neurological, behavioral, emotional, or intellectual disabilities. Yes, then we've got extrinsic barriers, which I think there are many of these. I think there are more of these. That's the lack of support from educators, inappropriate assessment procedures, inflexible curriculum. Many of these things are, we can work with these kind of issues. Just recently, I was at the World Literacy Summit, and then afterwards I went to stay with my sister, and there was a girl there who says she's dyslexic. I sat down with her and I taught her some of these things that I'm going to teach you today. And she said, gosh, Janet, she'd never been taught any of those things. So I think the teachers don't know these things. And actually, quite honestly, the teachers are trained in foundation phase how to teach, but they're not taught these skills in the intermediate phase and nor in the FET section sector. So this is really, really important. These issues are extrinsic barriers, and poor teaching really has a lot to be answered for. Then we've got systemic barriers such as the lack of basic material and equipment, inadequate support provision. At the moment in South Africa, we have learning support teachers, but they're about two schools per learning support person, and I think that's way too much. Each school should have a learning support person. Each school should have a social worker. So yes, inadequate support provision. I should say inappropriate language, but I think it's not inappropriate language, but I think it's our complex language policy that we have. Overcrowded classrooms, which are we often see that, especially in the poorer rural areas. And then the societal barriers, we've got poverty and underachievement, and all of these things are being made worse by COVID-19, and crime and negative attitudes, lack of early intervention programs, lack of access to basic services like technology. So a lot of societal barriers. We've got drugs, we've got gangsterism in the Western Cape. I'm examining a doctoral thesis at the moment, and she's explaining her school, and it's really in the center of a drug and gangster area. And the children are fearful. The children are very fearful of coming to school. And those societal barriers, it's parents who have never benefited from education, and so don't really feel the necessity to come to parent meetings. So maybe the parents are working 2 to 3 jobs. They don't have the time. I think we all know these societal barriers. I think we all know all of these barriers. And we have to be aware of them. What I struggle with is when people say, oh, but the teachers must address these issues. Oh, but the teachers. You talk about teenage pregnancies, and then people say, but the teachers must teach that. So I'm saying, yes, there's limit to what the teachers can do. Where are the parents in all of this? The parents must take on some sort of responsibilities as well. So yes, we do have these extensive barriers to learning, and we're all trying to, it seems like we're trying to swim uphill, and it's really hard. We take 5 steps forward and 10 steps back with all these barriers that we're experiencing. Now I'm going to talk about the Progress in International Reading Literacy study. This was the results in 2016. Last year they collected data. This study is done every 5 years. So last year they collected data, and this year we'll be getting the report. And of course we're all suggesting that it's going to be a lot worse. This is what we see from South Africa. And I'm sure you've all seen this graph, but what I want to share with you is I want to link it to the Pearls questions. So in the Pearls tests, there are comprehension passages, and each passage has a set of comprehension questions. Excuse me. Explicitly stated information, making straightforward inferences, interpret and integrate ideas and information, evaluate and examine content, language, and textual elements. Now, these are the easier. You see lower order thinking, low benchmark. So this is explicitly stated information is sort of saying there's a story, The Fox and the Crow, and the question could be how many animals are in the stories. So the information is right in the text. So there's very little thinking. But here, making straightforward inferences, we're having to infer meanings of words or sentences, and then here we've got to interpret and integrate ideas and connect them with our communities. And then we've got to be able to evaluate. So when I compare these skills to Bloom's taxonomy, the lowest level of thinking is remembering, and then we go to understanding. And I've kind of color-coded it to link it to the pearls. We've got to understand and apply our knowledge when we make inferences. We have to analyze and evaluate issues, and then we've got to create new knowledge. And what I've done further is I've connected these colors to the colors in this graph. But you see that there, sorry, is there someone there? I'm getting feedback. Yeah, thank you. You can see this red line here, and there is no red line here. So this is pointing out the gap. As you can see here, it says red says did not reach. So in 2016, 78% of our grade 4s did not reach the lowest benchmark, meaning they couldn't do these explicitly stated information and remembering questions. Only 15% of our students could do these explicitly stated information questions. There seems to be a feedback. Oh, thanks. And then 6% could make straightforward inferences. Only 2% could go to interpret and integrate ideas, and nobody could do the evaluate and examine the highest benchmark. So this is very, very frightening. Unfortunately, I think we must prepare ourselves for even worse results in the 2022 tests, just because of COVID. And I think for the whole world, COVID has influenced us. I'll give you a little bit of background of the Pearls literacies. It's 50 countries that are involved in this. It's an international test. For example, they take 5 years to get together and develop the passages so that the passages are neutral and relevant to every country. So, for example, South Africa went to this meeting and they took a passage on sharks, but many countries don't experience sharks, so that passage was thrown out. At that same meeting, somebody from the Netherlands came and said, there's a passage here on houses where goats eat the grass on the roof. And that's not applicable to South Africa, although we have thatched roof houses, but our goats don't eat the grass on the roof. So it takes 5 years to develop the passages, then to develop these questions. And then in South Africa, well, in every country that takes part, every person has to have, every country has to have it translated into those languages. We have it translated into our other 10 other languages, so Afrikaans and all the African languages. Yes, so this is the important thing, and what we're trying to address in this presentation is what can we do to help reduce this 78%. More results from the Pearls is that this is South Africa. Our marks were 320. The 500 point is the average medium, and yet we are below. We are, as I said, the last in the whole, all the 50 countries. And every year that we've done it in 2005, 2016, 2022. Well, we haven't had the results, but the previous years we've been the last country. And here they've divided it up into the provinces, and the Western Cape, although it's 377, we mustn't sit on our laurels. We still have a lot of work to do to get that up to at least the average 500 mark. But this is very interesting, this graph, because this talks about the school location. So the highest marks are coming from the city schools, and then the suburban schools, and then less in the remote rural schools. And I think you know, there are a lot of reasons for that. The one reason, I had a master's student who did her thesis on this, and she went out and looked at the teaching that was happening in a rural school, and the rural schools use the DBE books, and one of the DBE books had a passage on automatic washing machines. And of course, in the remote rural villages, schools, they wouldn't know what an automatic washing machine looked like, let alone how it works. They wash their clothes in the streams. So can you see that we have to use relevant information, and that's where the rural schools miss out a lot on. And then here are the languages. So the English had the highest marks, and Sepedi had the lowest marks. Okay, let me go on. Yes, at the World Literacy Summit that I was at recently, there was a lady, an international person, a Dr. Garp from Harvard University. She was presenting, and she quoted Desmond Tutu, and I was so proud to be South African. And she said this, and I think this is such a beautiful quote. She said, there comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. Now, to me, this is fantastic because, yes, why are they falling in? Let's try and address these systemic barriers, the extrinsic barriers, as far as we can. Let's make sure the schools are safe. Let's make sure that there are books and resources in all the schools. So, yes, instead of just looking at the children and blaming them and calling them dyslexic, I don't think they're dyslexic. I think that there are all sorts of other issues that are at play, and it's manifesting in the children, which is a very, very sad state of affairs. I want to look at this timeline of a typical reading development. This lady, Jean Shaw, she passed away, but I did have the pleasure of meeting her in America once. A tiny little lady. She's my absolute guru in literacy, and she's written many books. And this one is the stages of reading development. And if I had my camera on, I would show you mine. It's looking very tatty now. Actually, I think that might even be mine. That even looks so tatty because I use it so much. But you know, we all know about this continuum: learning to read and then reading to learn. So learning to read is your first few years in school, and then reading to learn is sort of starting from grade 3 to 4, where actually, especially in grade 4, you've got all the different subjects: history, geography, science, biology, where you're actually reading to learn those concepts. But let's break it down. So for those of you who had children, you know, we all know that the babies, they make gurgling sounds, and they are getting their vocal cords ready. They're looking at, they're copying the parents. They're wanting to get words out. As they develop, the words become more and more clear, what they're trying to say. We have to guess what they try to put sentences together, but they eventually get there. And then in the grade naught, they get to the stage where they want to read stories. They love stories, and they often are role modeled this love from their parents. And so in the early grade, naught grade R, children will take books, maybe even hold it upside down and pretend to read. And they say they're reading, and they will look at the pictures and they'll tell you a story about the pictures, and they'll make up their own story, which I always said to my students at Vista Nova who were non-readers. I said, that's excellent, because this is the beginning of literacy. If you can look at the visual pictures and you can make up a story, perfect. So instead of saying to the children, no, that's not right, let's value that. Let's say wonderful, let's move on. So this is the phonological processing. They will start recognizing their names. They will start writing their names. They'll start writing their mama and dada and understand that. Then you'll get to sort of grade 2, 3, or grade 1, where you'd look at the graphemes and phonemes. I think nowadays the WCED is brought into Jolly Phonics, so there's a lot of phonics going on here, looking at reading of single words. And then once you can read single words, you try to read sentences, and then you connect it to text. In the older age group, grade 3, grade 4, you're starting to read more and more complex texts. in grade 1, 2, and 3, you often read non-fiction texts, and then in grade 4 and 5, you're going to read report genres, a whole lot of different genres that are more complex, not only in the words that they use, but in the grammatical structure. So you might have heard of the grade 4 slump, and this is the reason for this is because it's there's a big jump between grade 3s and grade 4s in the type of texts that they are exposed to, in the way that they're taught, in the grammar that they're exposed to. Reading fluency is important. That is taught from grade 1, 2, and 3. And the older grades, we just assume that they need to read, they read fluently. But what do we mean by reading fluency? That is, you can read fluently if you identify the word. So it's word recognition. And at the same time, automatically you're putting meaning to that word. So it's automaticity of word recognition and meaning. And so when the two come together, that's when you say you've got reading fluency. And then we've got reading comprehension. And as I said earlier, I've been teaching teachers for 25 years, and I don't think I always taught inclusive education. Somebody else taught literacy. I don't think in the intermediate phase they taught reading comprehension. Maybe they are taught that in the foundation phase. Definitely not. These skills are not taught in the intermediate phase, nor in the high school phase. And I know some teachers train in the high school and then they go back and teach in the intermediate phase, and they haven't got these skills. And I know some of our students come into the schools being totally illiterate, and so teachers need to know how to do this. Okay, let me carry on. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spend quite a bit of time looking at reading skills. What do we mean by these reading skills, as Jean Charles says, along that continuum? And I'm going to break them up into basic reading skills, intermediate reading skills, and higher order reading skills. Now, if I was with you face to face, I would give you this copy, this sheet, and I would say to you, could you please read this to me? And then you look at these letters and you think, oh my gosh, she must be mad. And then I say, okay, well, look at this frame. There's a frame sit on the wall. You can see the string and the frame, and this word says waiting room. Here, I've got it. Now I say, can you use those letters to decode the sentence below? And I still, when I do this face-to-face with my students, they still look at me aghast, thinking that I'm totally mad. So I say to them, okay, I'll help you. I'll give you the first sentence. And the first sentence says, are you sick? And you can see a question mark there. And then I say, what does the second sentence say? And can you read the whole story? They eventually do get it. And this is what it says. It says, are you sick? Are you waiting for the doctor? We are not sick. We are waiting for our mother. Are you sick? We are waiting for the doctor. I am sick. I'm waiting for the doctor. Is your mother sick? Our mother is not sick. We are waiting for lunch with mother. Now, interesting, this word lunch, we've been exposed to the U and the N and the CH, but not the L. So students can't get this. And I say to them, read this sentence in to the end, read the whole sentence to the end and see if you can go back and guess what it is. And then they see, okay, lunch. Your mother is not sick. Why are you waiting for your mother at the doctor's? Is your mother the nurse? Our mother's not the nurse. Our mother is the doctor. So this takes about a good 20 minutes for the students to do it. What I've had in the past is somebody, an African lady, was lived in Khayelitsha, and she thought this looked like the waiting room at a bus station. So she wrote her whole story about a waiting room in a bus station. And I said that was very good. What she was doing is she was looking at the pictures and talking about the pictures and making up her own story. And I thought that was very creative. Okay, so then what I do is I say to the students, can you believe that what you've been doing now is reading? And how did you do it? So they give me ideas, and as they give me the ideas, I put them on the whiteboard. But because this is an online session, I can't do that with you. So what I'm going to do is look at the basic reading skills. So these are the basic reading skills. They know phonics, they know the starting letters and the end letters, they know sound symbols. They start to recognize words, are you sick, and mother and doctor. They know the initial letters. They know sick, for sick, they know M for mother, D for doctors. Some of them actually take all those little shapes and link them to the alphabet. So they transcribe it using the alphabet. Some of them know that the eye movement, they go from left to right. And have you heard about the concepts of print? The concepts of print is that in South Africa, we read from left to right and we read from top to bottom. In some cultures, like in the East, they'll read from top to bottom, or some countries from bottom to top. And then we go on to the intermediate reading skills, is that some of them will have a contextual clue. Like when I gave them that word, doctor's room, they immediately said, oh, well, they've been in a doctor's room. What happens in a doctor's room? It could be a doctor, it could be a dentist, but they're waiting around to see the doctor or the dentist. So they immediately understand the story because they understand the pictures. You see, the picture cues give them an indication. That lady who related her story to the bus station in Khayelitsha. We predict what's happening. When the teachers got to the word lunch, they had the UNCH, but they had to predict what the L was. So often we do that in our reading. We use prediction. We try to get meaning from the passage. Then we go into the higher order reading skills, and comprehension is in both, but comprehension with the higher order reading skills is we're extending the understanding of the comprehension. We can do that by previewing. You look at the whole piece of paper. It's typically on one sheet, back and front. So you have a look at the front sheet, you turn it over, you have a look at the back sheet. We skim, we scan it. We infer from that picture, and we infer from the sentence, are you sick, and the waiting room, but it's going to be something about a doctor or something. And again, we predict. In a way, prediction and inference are very similar. And we read for information. Okay, that's always, it's very important that we read for information from a very young age. Mother will give the child some money and say, go to the shop and buy me some flour and some eggs. And the child can do that because they read the, the information on the flour box, or they're going to buy a Coke. They're not going to buy a Fanta, they'll buy a Coke. They read that. So from a very young age, children are reading for information. But this is another interesting thing, is that there's a lot of other skills we bring to our reading. For example, life experiences, like being in a doctor's room, like being sick, we know about that. When I gave the first clue, waiting room, and then are you sick, I asked them to risk transferring those letters into those shapes into letters and put then meaning there. So they risked it. When they could, they transferred that information to other letters. They started feeling that they could complete sentences. So they were starting to get a little bit motivated, and that motivation led to developing confidence. When they finished, they would look up and shout, say, I'm done, and with a big smile on their face. So they loved that. they developed a positive attitude to their reading, and they connected to the reading, connected to their prior lived experiences and their emotions. So can you see, ladies and gentlemen, that when we read, we're doing all of these skills? I mean, reading is very, very complex. No wonder so many of our children have problems with it, but it is very important that teachers teach all these things. So what I'm going to do now, oh yes, and working together, we used to work together. It always helps to work together. The backtracking, the children had to go from the front page to the back page, or the back page to the front page. And that's often they do that, once they've understood, they could recognize a word on the one page, then they've got to go back and check it. But you might have been introduced to the science of reading. The WCED have bought into this, and they're using Jolly Phonics, and they're talking about the science of reading. They're saying that there are a huge amount of publications on that. Do you know about the great wars of reading? The great wars of reading are between how do we teach our children to read? And the one side is saying Jolly Phonics, and the other saying reading for meaning. Personally, because I've experienced working with children at Vista Nova, where I tried for many years to teach phonics, my children would say to me, Miss Condi, every time you teach us something, there's an exception to the rule. And there is one particular article that I've got where it points out 45 phonic conventions, of which only 4 are used 100% of the time. So my personal experience is I don't teach only the phonics. I teach words in meaning. And I think that if we could have a balance between those two, it would be so much better. So synthetic phonics is about teaching learners the sound of the English language, and being able to decode and encode. You know the difference between decode and encode? Decode starts with a D, and the word down is there. So it's breaking down the word. And encode is putting it together and reading and writing words. So it's all about decoding and encoding words. And the purpose of this synthetic phonics is that the learners learn that all words can be broken down into smaller units of sound called phonemes, which are represented by graphemes. Graphemes are these little letters. I'll explain this a little bit more further on. Analytic phonics is where the learners learn to recognize words by sight. We've typically called those words sight words, and I'm going to speak to you about those. So now I'm just going to go into a lot more detail about basic reading skills and the phonic approach, the synthetic approach, the analytic approach, the sight word, and the linguistic approach. So the science of reading doesn't even talk about the linguistic approach. But let's start now with the phonics approach. I'll go into this. The phonics approach is about letters. Letters help children to learn the correspondences, and they can sound out or decode words. There are rules for sounding out letter combinations. Means learning to read is learning to pronounce words. I don't like this emphasis on pronouncing words, because I'm originally from Zimbabwe, so I've got a Zimbabwean accent. I've got a postdoc fellow who's a Cameroonian, and she's got a Cameroonian accent. And I wouldn't say any accents are right. That's just how it is. That's how life is. So I don't think it's important for us to put too much emphasis on pronunciation, as long as we can understand the words. And as long as children can get meaning from certain combinations of letters. Now, what are graphemes and what are phonemes? So we've got vowel graphs, which is a 1 letter, digraphs, a 2 letter, trigraphs, 3, and quadgraphs. As in this word, nay, neighborhood. So let's unpack this word, because this is a very good word. It shows us a quad graph. The A is a quad graph. The EIGH say A, it's the silent GH, but all four letters say A. And then we've got the R, the trigraph, 3 letters, neighbor, and then hood, the O says O. And these are all vowel sounds, but then we do have the consonant graphs, so single letters in between. Okay, now phonemes are like a phone. What does the letter sound like? So pretend you've got a phone in your ear. What does it sound like? Those are your phonemes. Okay, the consonants. The graphs are the individual letters, the digraphs are 2 consonants, the TH, we have lots of those words. We have trigraphs with the THR, and we have quad graphs like OUGH, and it is a consonant because it says it's the F, O-U-G-H, and it says a F sound, so that's why it's a consonant sound in this word. Okay, we go on to sight words. Sight words are words that are not phonetically regular, yet they make up about half the words in a text. There are words that children cannot recognize in sight and cannot decode. So that's why this analytic, synthetic approach of reading is very difficult, because so many of our words, you can't decode them. When I was at Vista Nova teaching, we used to flash these words at the children so that they can just remember them. It's recognizing and remembering. And there are about 100 words, these sight words, and if we just flash them at the children and we learn them, they get the word recognition, and there's automaticity there. The focus is on the whole words rather than the parts of the word. So there are many different ways of remembering how to spell these words, because that's really the difficult part. So you have the word 8. So there's a little rhyme that says a fatty, which is the E, which is a fatty, and a thinny, which is the E, and a gahata. I'm sure you know this. Friends is 5 red Indians eat nuts downstairs. And when I was teaching at Vista Nova, children always used to spell they T-H-A-Y. So we came up with a little rhyme, 10 hungry elephants yawn, not ants. And the last approach is the linguistic approach, where there are patterns. So the fat cat sat on the mat. Once the words are identified, meaning takes care, because the at sound, you just change the first letter. Fat cat sat on the mat. Look at these ones. These are more complex. The would, the could, the should. There's a here, there, and there. And children get these all mixed up. These have to do with space, except that one. There's this there. And we know that you have to pronounce, you've got to spell that with the dot on the I. I always say it's like having a hat on their hats, whereas there over there is to do with space. Okay, now we move on to the intermediate reading skills, and I'm breaking these into structural analysis and contextual analysis. Structural analysis is how we decode words, basically, and context analysis is how we look at the context. So I'm going to give you examples of how to do all of these. So the first one is syllabification. I used to run my own private remedial business, and I used to have children who come to and work with me in the evenings. And I used to say to them, I've got this magic way of teaching reading, and this is what it is. There are 3 rules for reading difficult words. One, and it's simple, it's a simple rule. If you go into texts on syllabification. You'll find books with 120 rules for syllabification, but I've reduced it to 3. So the 3 rules for reading difficult words are: 1, you underline all the vowels; 2, you cut before one consonant; and 3, you cut between 2 consonants. So let's give this let's do an example. For example, there's this word. Now, we don't know how to say it. Children start and then they get confused. So what we say is, okay, let's go through these 3 rules. So the first one is, let's underline the vowel. So we say, is this a vowel? No. Is this a vowel? Yes, let's underline it. Is this a vowel? No. Is this a vowel? Yes, let's underline it. No, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then when we get to vowels that are together, we underline it as 1 underline. So we can see there are 5 underlines here, which mean there are 5 syllables in this word. So then we go to step 2 and 3. We say, okay, from step 1, you see we've got these 2 vowels. How many consonants are there between these 2 vowels? There's 1. And so we cut before 1 consonant. So they're the 2 vowels, and we cut before the T. Then we come to these 2 vowels, the E and the E, and we say, how many consonants between these 2 vowels? They're 2. And what does it say? We cut between 2 consonants. So we cut between the R and the M. So it's like that. Then we see, okay, we've got 2 vowels here. How many consonants between these 2 vowels? There's 1. So we cut before that 1 consonant. And again, here there's 1 consonant, so we cut before. Now we say it together. We say each syllable, determination, determination. So we can teach ourselves how to write, how to read difficult words. And you know, it doesn't happen just with children who can't read difficult words. It happens with us. Just recently, while we were going through COVID, I used to see this word and I didn't know how to pronounce it. So what I did is I used these 3 rules and I broke it up. I, ver, mek, tin. Once I broke it up, I got it. I got it immediately. And so as adults, we often need to have these syllabification rules. And it's so easy. We just underline the vowels, we cut before 1 consonant, and we cut between 2 consonants. And when I was teaching at Visnova, I had these 3 vowels. I put the word syllabification. I had these on a great big poster underneath the board, so all the children could have access to it. So when they were reading and they couldn't identify a word, they would be able to follow the rules and they could become independent readers. I'm telling you, this is magic. All the children who came to my private remedial practice used to say, this is magic, and they had taken it off and used it, taught their parents, taught their cousins. It was fantastic. So the next one is structural analysis, where we cut off prefixes and suffixes. So this is the word enjoyment. Here we break it up, enjoyment. And what do we mean? The prefix is the N, the root word is a joy, and the suffix is ment. Now, recently, as I was saying, I was in England and I met this one girl and she was calling herself dyslexic. And I was teaching her these things. And I said, do you know what the difference is between a prefix and a suffix? And she said, no. So I said, well, look at the alphabet. A prefix, the P, is at the beginning of the alphabet. It comes before S, and S is at the end. So P comes before and S comes afterwards. So remember, you know, it's at the beginning, which is green, and at the end is red. And this poor little girl, I taught her some of these strategies, and she was just going, you know, she'd never been taught any of these issues before. So this is another very, very nice way to teach reading when children come to a difficult word. One year I used to teach my children this all the time. Instead of teaching phonics, I taught word building. What's the beginning of the word? What's the middle of the word? What's the end of the word? And so we would have a look at this. It's Amanda. But what I would say is, can you find a smaller word in the bigger word? So when you break it up, can you see a smaller word? Yes, that says man. So then that says man, and then at the end comes da, and you put it all together, Amanda. And so I think in August one year, as one little child, Matthew, came to me and said, Miss Condi, I know what this word says. It says Amanda. So I said, how do you know, Matthew? He said, well, you've taught us. See if you can find smaller words and bigger words. What does it start with? What's the middle? What's the end? And he had, over the time, he had taken a long time, 8 months, to inculcate this knowledge and to use it himself. And so some of our children are like that, and they just need time, and they need to have these rules repeated regularly with them. So contextual clues is another one. For example, the brown house or horse jumped over the fence. So when we read it and we say the brown house jumped over the fence, we can say, oh, silly, that doesn't, how can a house jump over the fence? But look what the problem is here, is we've looked at the first two letters and the last two letters, and they're the same. And our brain has just assumed, predicted incorrectly the wrong word. And then once we do that, we've got to go back and read it again, the brown, and now we pay more attention to the word. We say, oh, this is a U and this is an R, so it's actually horse jumped over the fence. And ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you that I do this regularly. When I'm tired and I'm reading the newspaper, I often read and I say, hang on, that doesn't make sense. And I go back and I see that I've predicted incorrectly. So what I suggest you do is you actually tell children that you also make these mistakes. You know, we're not perfect as teachers. We're not perfect. We also make mistakes, but we've got strategies to help us correct ourselves. And that's what all of this is doing. We're teaching you to correct yourselves, to be independent readers. And then the last one is the two boys am or are going home. You know, we eventually hear that it, you know, we know that from reading lots that it is actually the two boys are going home. Now the picture cues, this was a very exciting thing for me. I was working with my students, and a male student was working with his child, and they got to this, it was a book about birds in a cage, and the birds were outside the cage. So the sentence said the bird escaped from the cage, and the child read this, the bird is from the cage, and she couldn't get this word. So you know what he said? He said, where do you live? And she said, Cape Town. She said, do you see the word Cape here? Oh, she said, yes, I see word Cape. What does it start with? S, Cape, da. Oh, now let's put it together. Escaped. And the picture cue is telling you what the birds have done. They have escaped from the cage. So all of these really help us a lot with all of these strategies help us a lot to read words and to help us with our spelling of the words. I found this little poem many years ago. I get these journals, and I used to read these journals from cover to cover, the reading teacher, and I came across this little poem. It says, when I get stuck on a word in a book, there are lots of things to do. I can do them all, please, by myself. I don't need any help from you. I can look at the picture to get a hint or think what the story's about. I can get my mouth ready to say the first letter, a kind of sounding out. I can chop the words into smaller parts like on and ing and lee, and find smaller words and compound words like raincoat and bumblebee. I can think of a word that makes sense in that place, guess or say blank and read on. until the sentence has reached its end. Then go back and try these on. Does it make sense? Can we say it that way? Does it look right to me? Chances are the right word will pop out like the sun in my own mind, can't you see? If I've still thought of and tried out most of these things and I still do not know what to do, then I may turn around and ask for some help to get me through. Okay, so those are all, that's your basic reading skills and your intermediate reading skills. You see the meaning, we're trying to read for meaning, we're using picture cues. All right, now we're getting onto the higher order reading skills, and really we're wanting to get up into these areas here, the higher order thinking. We're not just getting information straight from the text. We're trying to understand inferences. And ladies and gentlemen, I run many courses on reading for meaning. And the one thing that I keep having to teach is how to teach inferences. Teachers don't know how to teach inferences. It's really interesting, and that is the second level of the benchmarks. You know, we've still got the third and fourth level to get to. So I'm moving on, and I'm going to just quickly go through these 5 ways of teaching higher order reading skills. So I'm going on to my turn, your turn. You may have heard about this skill. It's about modeling higher order thinking skills. So we don't teach them. We don't explicitly teach. Well, we explicitly teach it by role modeling. And we use these skills. We use these questions: predicting, making connection, clarifying, paraphrasing, and summarizing and inferring. And if you ask good readers, how do they read? They will come and tell you that they use these skills. They have just used it. They've been taught it. Maybe their parents have taught them to them implicitly. And as teachers, we need to explicitly teach these skills. So how do we explicitly teach these skills? So we've got this text. Anita, I just want to know, how much time have I got left?
Well, it's 10 to 3 now.
Yeah.
Until what time is the workshop scheduled for? Let me just quickly have a look here on my calendar.
And is it until 4 o'clock?
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay, thank you. Good. So is there somebody who would like to read this paragraph for me, please? Just unmute and read it. Anybody? Please risk doing this. Anybody want to read it?
I can read if you want.
Thanks, Anita.
Riverine rabbits are found. Oh, let me just mute this person. Okay. Riverine rabbits are found only in South Africa, in the Karoo. Unfortunately, they are our most threatened mammals. They are in danger of disappearing forever. Riverine rabbits live along rivers in the Karoo. The soil there allows them to dig burrows. Riverine rabbits need burrows to raise their babies, which are tiny when they are born, just a bit bigger than a matchbox. The babies are called kittens. Some farmers have ploughed up the land next to the rivers, so the bushes and shrubs riverine rabbits need have been destroyed. There are fewer and fewer places where these rabbits can live and look after their kittens. The South African Wildlife Society is trying to save the riverine rabbits. Some farmers in the Karoo have agreed to protect the rabbits on their farms. There are also a breeding program at the De Wild Nature Reserve. There they breed the rabbits in safety. They hope to return these rabbits to the Karoo where they belong.
Thanks, Anita. That was super. I would like more people to participate because I'm now going to ask all of you to participate. So we start with my turn. So my turn as a teacher, I say, I wonder what the story's about. And your turn. And obviously this is done before you read. And so you know the answer now because you know it's about the riverine rabbits. All right, we go to the next one. And you see, these are your questions. These are examples of questions. So my turn, the teacher says, the story says that the Karoo is in Africa. I wonder if the Karoo is close to or far away from your house. What do you think and why do you say so? Anybody like to give an answer? Anyone like to participate? Please don't be shy. It's lovely to participate. It's more fun to participate than to sit and listen. Yes, go ahead.
It's far away from my house.
And why do you say that?
Because I don't live near the Karoo.
Okay, good. So you see, it's a connecting question. So we're connecting to your lived experiences. Now we say my turn. What does the author mean to raise their babies? And this is an inference question. So here he says they need burrows to raise their babies. What do we mean by raising their babies? Anybody like to give it a guess what we mean by that? Please unmute. The lady who's just have participated. Would you like to give it a guess?
Okay, am I the only one on this course? To raise a baby is to rear them, to make them big.
That's it, to get them bigger. So they get given birth to and then they raise them. Thank you. I don't think you're the only one. I felt it was me the only one. Hopefully we can get more people to participate. So the next question is my turn. Why can the rabbit not have their babies next to the rivers in the Karoo? Now your turn. See if you can answer that. Why can the rabbits not have their babies next to the river in the Karoo? Anybody like to guess? Predict? Clarify? I think you are the only one in the room.
Hi, I think there are no rivers in the Karoo.
Yes, why are they next to the rivers? Why can't they have their babies next to the rivers?
Because if the river floods, they'll drown.
Perfect, excellent. Thank you for participating. That's great. The next page is my turn. I'd say the teacher. Can you tell me about this text using your own words? And now your turn. And if you would like to give it a guess, just try and paraphrase or summarize this. Don't read it, but just summarize it in your own words. Who'd like to take a guess? Anybody? Anita, you read it. Would you like to give it a guess?
Sorry, Janet. So I just got to summarize the whole paragraph.
Just in a few sentences, yes.
Okay. The riverine rabbits found in South Africa. They live along the rivers in the Karoo. Their babies are called kittens. Some of the farmers have plowed up the land, and there are few and fewer places for them to live safely. And the Wildlife Society is trying to save these rabbits, but they hope to return the rabbits to the Karoo where they belong. Something like that.
Thank you. Excellent, Anita. Yeah, you've done very well. You didn't know you had to work this
No.
afternoon. But thank you very much
Pleasure.
for participating.
Pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, this paraphrasing and summarizing and writing it in your own word is one of the most difficult skills for children to do. They struggle to write it in their own words. So to give them verbal experiences of these before they do it in writing is so important. So can you see that this activity is looking at and role modeling, predicting questions, inference questions, what does it mean to raise their babies, clarifying questions, paraphrasing, summarizing questions. We role model these kind of questions. This is how we role model it. We role model it by giving the question and then asking the children to give their ideas. And the children love it. They love to participate. They love to give their opinions. And this, if you go back to that graph that I had of the Pearl's test and the Bloom's taxonomy, this is where they are linking the knowledge to their own experiences. So the one question about connecting questions where the lady said, no, she lives far away from the crew. You see, she's connecting. And the minute you connect to a text, you personalize it a lot more, and it makes it far more important, and you can relate to it much better. So this My Turn, Your Turn is a fantastic way of teaching, ladies and gentlemen. It's all oral, but we are role modeling these higher order questions verbally, and then we'll get to writing. Okay. The next one is how to teach inference. Yes, so this is very nice saying. It says inference is a process of making an educated guess about a text based on the clues it provides and our understanding of the world. So this is again bringing in our understanding of the world. I had a master's student who actually explored this. She was a grade 8 teacher in a school in the Atlantic seaboard. She was an English teacher, and she interviewed her colleague, and the colleague said, no, I don't think you can teach inference. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that we can teach inference from grade 1s. Grade 1s, we can do this. Grade 1s, we can teach this inference skill. Let me explain to you. The Scarborough's reading rope, those of you who know something about the science of reading know about this Scarborough's reading rope. It's a rope, it's a rope, and when you detangle the rope, you get lots of strands coming out. And these strands, they've connected these strands to language comprehension. To do the language comprehension, we need background knowledge, vocabulary knowledge, language structure, verbal reasoning, literacy knowledge. So we need all of that. But we also need word recognition. We need phonic awareness, decoding and spelling, sight recognition. The riverine rabbits, those words we could identify them on sight. Now, these are all inference skills. And skilled readers use fluent execution and coordination of word recognition, skill comprehension text. So to be able to be a fluent reader, you need to have all of these skills. You need the phonological awareness, the synthetic and analytical skills here, but you need all of these as well to be a fluent reader. And it says reading is multifaceted, gradually acquired over years of instruction and practice. So how do we teach inference? Our answers must be supported by clues, and the clues must be added to what we already know. And more often there are more than one correct possible answers. And these are higher order thinking skills. And often teachers do not know this. They may teach it implicitly, but what we have to make teachers aware of is actually making the teaching of inference explicit, meaning we talk about it, like I'm talking about it now. We need to get our children to understand the complexities of language and what we mean by all of these. So, for example, yes, we encourage them to point to the textual clues. They've got to explain to us how they got to their answers. try to uncover. We say it's like teaching, being a detective, you know, with your big microphone, magnifying glass, and you've got to go and explain why you think, for example, what was rearing baby rabbits. Oh yes, there I have the magnifying glass. We use that magnifying glass. So this was my student. This was the paper that we presented, and she looked up. She was an amazing student. She found this, and she used this with her student to help her students draw inferences. So there's a text. You read the question, and then you break it up into these 3 sections. So the text says, find the information from the text to answer each question, paraphrase or quote answers from the text. And then you say, I say. So it says is from the text. What do I say about it? What do I know more information? What do I say about it? And then and so you put the information together now, and then you might get the answer. So an example here is, at dawn, we'll go for a picnic. What food will I put in my basket? So it says, at dawn. What is meant by the word dawn? I understand we will go for a meal. So that's what it says. I'm not putting any of my ideas in there. But then I say, I know that fishermen go out at dawn. That means they go out early in the morning to catch their fish. I've heard that. I've heard my mother tell me that. And so I suggest that at dawn, it means in the morning, we're going to go for a picnic. What food am I going to put in my basket? Okay, I'll put tea and coffee and a croissant with jam into my basket. Can you see that it's very nice? You have your question, it says, I say, and so. And can you see the logic and the reasoning of understanding this inference? Fantastic. She did a very nice paper on that. Now, one of the complexities of English is that we have similes, we have idiomatic expressions, and they are in our language a lot. It's not just English, it's Afrikaans, it's isiXhosa. I don't know about the other African languages, but look at this. She says, and then drop on the deck and flop like a fish. I mean, she's not flopping like a fish. This doesn't look like a fish. What do we mean by to flop like a fish? When we come home from work, we flop on the couch like a fish, or spank me with a wet fish, or swim like a fish, or be curious like a fish, or like a fish out of water. What does it mean to be a fish out of water? So the other day I asked my students how many languages they have between Mowbray and Cape Town, and that's really about a 5-kilometer distance. There were 14 languages. You know, there's French, there's Mozambique, there's Swahili, there's Ndebele, there's the Shona languages, and now they've got to come and learn English. And if I say to you, you're acting like a fish out of water, the student is going to look at me like I'm mad. So we have to explain these. So what we have to do, teachers, is we actually have to teach these similes, but in a fun way as well. So here are some idiomatic expressions with fish. I mean, again, we say somebody's a big fish, but do we know that it's an important or influential person? There's a big fish in a small pond. What does that mean to a lot of these children? A cold fish, a drink like a fish, perhaps people know about that. To fish around is to investigate, or fish for compliments, or a fish out of water. Something's fishy, it's suspicious, or there's plenty of fish in the sea, don't worry. Or teach a man to fish. We often hear about that, and especially in our churches, we hear about this one, teach a man to fish. So these are examples of idiomatic expressions, and all of this is a teaching of inference. So how do we assess inference making? So for example, we've got this sentence, Nomveliso wanted to eat some fish. In the evening, she went to the local shop and bought some hake fish and chips for her and her family. They sat outside their house and ate the delicious fish and chips. So how are we going to assess this? Because obviously assessment is important. We can have open-ended questions. At what meal did Nomveliso eat her fish and chips? Was it breakfast, lunch, or supper? And why do you say so? Can you see that nowhere in this passage does it say that it's it says in the evening, but it doesn't say for supper. So the words are not there. This is an inference. This is a very good example of an inference. Or we can have multiple choice. Where did Nomveliso get her fish and chips? From the harbor, from the local shop, from the house. So she said she went to the local shop and bought some. So there it's quite easy. Actually, this is a direct, explicitly stated question from the local shop. True or false? Nomveliso liked the fish and chips. True or false? They sat outside their house and ate the delicious fish and chips. So the fact that she's saying delicious fish and chips means that it was true. She liked the fish and chips. Or we could use a close activity. A close activity is where you have a few sentences and you leave out important words. It could be that you're teaching nouns or verbs or something like that. Nomveliso wanted to eat some fish and chips. Is it she or he went to the local shops? Now we can see that she went into the local shops and bought some fish and chips for the whole family, for her and her family. So we've got that there. So there are different ways we can actually do these activities and get marks for it. And you can, keep those marks in your mark book. All right, this is the next activity I want to do with you. And this is a fantastic activity. It's called an anticipation guide. And it's a set of statements to which students respond, to each individually activating their own prior knowledge. So it's really bringing in children's prior knowledge. By working in small groups, at the beginning, remember when we did that that waiting room, we talked about working in groups. By working in small groups, students learn from each other while they provide their own opinions. You see, teachers, one of the things that is really difficult in our schooling now is we don't allow the children to give their own opinions. Why? Because we've got to get through all the DBE books. We've got time constraints. We've got to get through. We don't give our children time to give opinions. But if we connect, like this is an anticipation guide, you can use this in the language lesson because it's language, but you can use the content from your history lesson or your biology lesson. So when you start integrating subjects, you can free up time where thereby allowing children to give their own opinions about the statements. We set a clear purpose for our learning, and the statements need to be carefully written so they stimulate and agitate students' curiosity about the topic by challenging their prior knowledge. So, yes, we are getting, the statements are controversial, and you'll see why. Now, so here's the Riverine passage that Anita kindly read for us earlier. We don't need to read it again because we've gone through all of this. So here, this, by the way, the reading, this activity is a pre-reading activity. So we read the passage with the learners. Often it's better to get the children to learn because you've passed your grade 4 exams. So you mustn't take these important teaching moments or learning moments away from children. Allow them to read it, and they will like to do that. So then a during reading activity is this. So you get some, put it on a sheet of paper, put the children into groups of 5, they put their name at the top, and then they've got to now answer this. So rabbits are only found in the Karoo. So if I put my name there, that's Janet, and then Anita, and then Heather, and then Shanti. So we've got our group of 4. And then we each take a turns to talk about it. And then Janet, I say, no, rabbits are not only found in the Karoo because my auntie has some rabbits. So I'll disagree with this. I'll say I'm going to disagree with it. I don't do anything yet. It's just verbal. It's just talking. Anita says, yes, she agrees that, or she disagrees with the sentence because she has rabbits in her own home. Her child has a rabbit, and she says that they are not only found. So she disagrees with that. Then Heather says, no, she doesn't know anybody with rabbits, and she's never read any stories about rabbits, only that the rabbits exist in the Karoo. So she agrees with that statement. And Chanticleer is from the Cameroons, and she said in the Cameroon they have rabbits around. So she underlines it. And then now we've all given our opinions, and now we go back and we circle. So I'm going to circle, I said disagree. Anita says she disagrees with that. Heather says she agrees with that, so I circle that. And Chanticleer circles the disagree. And so you go on. Their babies are called kittens. And I'm not going to discuss each one, but I'll also, so you see, the statements are written, they're controversial. We don't ever put the word don't in there because it's difficult to disagree with the don't. So we write it in the positive. Rabbits live in cages. Their babies are called kittens. The riverine rabbits feel safe to have their babies next to the rivers in the Karoo. The South African wildlife is trying to save the rabbits. The Karoo farmers want to get rid of the riverine rabbits. And so this activity will probably take about half an hour for each group to complete. And then as a post reading, then we talk about it as a whole class. What did you think about that first? How many people said agree? How many said disagree? And you take out the outliers and you discuss the outliers and you talk about that. But this is really getting to know the students' knowledge of riverine rabbits, of the content. But we can also identify their gaps in knowledge. When I was doing this with my students at Vista Nova, we were talking about weather, and I said, thunder comes from when 2 clouds bump together. And one child was very strong. He really believed that that's when the thunder did come from, was when the clouds bumped together. And so I knew I had to take time to go and teach it. I identified a gap in one of the children's knowledge, and I had to actually explicitly teach it. So we identify what they know, we identify what they don't know, and then we explicitly teach these topics, which you can do in your history lesson or your language lesson. Here are some different examples of anticipation guides. This is ancient Greece. For example, before reading, they've just got the agree or disagree and then the statement. So before the lesson, you can get them to give their opinions here, agree or disagree. Then during the lesson, you actually teach the content of ancient Greece. And then after the lesson, they come and compare or write down what they've learned. This is a very nice way of seeing how children improve their knowledge. And it's very important to watch that development, because that is one of the building blocks of building knowledge, is we've got to see what they didn't know, but now we see what they've learned, and we can praise them for that. This is, for example, of a grade 1 class where, in fact, they don't have to write anything. They can just circle a happy face or a sad face. And you don't have to have long sentences, and you can the sentences are short, and they just complete circle the correct happy face or sad face. And this is again something I think that I would feel that it happened to me, I believe. So either before reading and after reading. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you that this anticipation guide, I do a lot in my workshops, and the teachers love it. They come back time and time again saying how they never realized what their children thought about certain things. And so the more we value our children in the class, the more they want to participate, the more they want to come to school. It reduces absenteeism. They get their parents involved. They get everybody involved. These discussion points then continue out into the playground, and it becomes incredible. It becomes such an exciting place to be for them to be in the classroom. All right. Now, this is, again, a different way of asking comprehension questions. Again, we've got the Bloom's taxonomy and the Pearls questions here. So can you see that all of these activities, we're moving up into the higher order thinking skills, where we're doing inferencing, we're interpreting, we're integrating it to in the information to our own ideas. We've been given opportunities to give our own opinions. We are able to evaluate and examine all of this. So we are moving from just remembering facts to participating and doing higher order thinking skills. Now, this is a very interesting, and it's a very different way of doing a comprehension question. So here, this is the question. Here we give the question: where do these riverine rabbits live? And we give the answer: they live near rivers in the Karoo. What we have to do is we have to identify what kind of question it is. Is it a 1? The 1 is a retrieve explicitly stated information. Is it a 2, making straightforward inference? Is it a 3, interpret? Or is it a 4, evaluate? And I'd like to ask you, what do you think it is? Is it a 1, 2, 3, or 4 kind of question? Anybody just shout out? Would you like to shout, like to give an idea? Risk doing it?
2.
2, you say 2. Why do you say a 2?
It's a straightforward inference from the story.
It's a straightforward inference. It could it also be a 1?
Yes.
Yes, because I think in the text it says they live near the rivers in the Karoo. So it could be a 1 or 2. And you know what's interesting, what you're saying is that now some of these questions can be a 1 or 2 or a 3 or a 4. And the more we do these questions, the more we start to understand what is an inference, what is a 1 question, what is a 2 question. And it's through the discussions that we learn, and we learn what these questions are. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you that the Western Province Education Department are using these questions in the systemic tests. So if you could practice these questions with your children and do a lot of work with them, I'm sure you're going to get this PowerPoint and take it home and look at it and continue learning from it, and do these activities with your children. You will benefit, and your systemic results will be much better. Now look at number 2. The question is, I wonder what the author means to raise their babies. Answer: the mother looks after her babies till they're grown up. What kind of question is this? Is this a 1, 2, 3, or 4? The lady who gave me the question before, would you like to answer again?
Could I try?
Yes, please do.
I think it's number 3, because I am interpreting what I've read, and I'm taking my ideas of, okay, I've seen people raising babies, so maybe it's similar to that too.
Good. Okay. Yes, it could be you're interpreting it, raising their babies, because you've read the passage, you're interpreting it, and you're probably integrating it in your own language, into your own culture, your own background, your own prior knowledge. Do you think it could be a two, an inference? Like, what's a cold fish or something like that? Do we talk about raising babies? Could it be a two?
It's possible, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's thank you for that. That's exactly. So what we have to do is really talk about, and we need a lot more experience with these kind of questions, understanding these questions. So I hope I've whet your appetite. And I hope you're going to take this PowerPoint and try and explore it with your children. Now, the last one I'm going to do with you, the last activity, higher order thinking activity I want to do with you, is a feature matrix. And I'm sure you know about this. And this is, so the pre-reading activity, and the title is about children's rights. I don't know if we've got time to read it, but basically it's about children's rights and what are children's rights. Every child has this. We need children's rights to lead full and happy lives. I'm not going to read it exactly to you now, but you would take time in your class and you would give a child the position of Ravi and Farah and May to read, and then they can read it like reader's theatre. And then what we've done is we've got a matrix. So in the CAPS book, they talk about, I have a right to survival, I have a right to be protected, I have a right to development, I have a right to participate. So then we take each picture, and in the baby, the early years, they can cut out the picture and place it in the correct area. So let's take this picture of this child eating some tomatoes and looks like lettuce, and I'm not sure what that orange pumpkin maybe. So is this a right to what? Where would you, if you had to cut out this in this matrix, where would you put this? Survival, protection, development, participate. Anyone like to give it a guess?
Survival.
Good. Yes. Very good. Anybody else? Thank you.
Development.
Yes, it could be development. Yes. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Don't touch me and make me feel uncomfortable. Where would you cut this out? Where would you put this in the matrix?
The right to be protected.
Yes, thank you. The right to be protected. Look at this picture. I learn when I play. Where would this be? A right to?
Development.
Development, yes. Another one?
Participate.
Participate, good, yes. I have a right to clean air and water.
Being survival and protected.
Yes, yes, yes. And this one? A right to?
Be protected.
I think so. And you go along, and you go along. This is just another way of doing a feature matrix. And yes, a feature matrix is taking an issue and comparing content. We did one with the older children about fish and how to catch fish. So they have hand lines, they have fishing trawlers, they've got fishing rods, and so you put all of these here, and then you get sentences, and the children complete the sentences. So I'm sure you've all used feature matrices, don't you? It's a very good comparing activity. Have you used it in your classes? I'm sure there's some activities in the DBE books on feature matrices where you compare activities. Okay, let's go on. When you've done an activity, it's a very good idea to reflect on it for diagnostic purposes. So, what did you like about the strategy? So I've shared 5 strategies with you: the my turn, your turn, the anticipation guide, the inference, the feature matrix, and the comprehension questions. So, when you finished a strategy, just ask the children, what is it that they like? What strategy did they like and why? What did you learn from using the strategy? When I run my workshops, one of the quite a lot of things that the teachers learn is that they can't believe how much their children know. They can't believe how much the children want to participate. They can't believe how much the children are starting to read. And also, they can't believe how much all the talking then translates into better writing skills. So, there's a lot that we can learn from these higher order thinking skills. And then, did you use higher order thinking? Were you, when you were giving your opinions, did you ever change your mind after hearing what your friends said? That's an incredibly interesting point, because I think we have to realize that we have opinions, but we are allowed to change our opinions. We are allowed to say, yes, maybe that's different. And yes, I agree with you. And I'm happy to change my mind, because that is getting the children to think. And that's a higher order thinking. We want to remove ourselves from rote learning teachers. We want our children to be participative learners in our class, to be actively involved in our class. And did all the learners in your class participate? What I'm meaning here is, what about your slow learners? What about your fast learners? What about your learners who might have a physical disability? Do you include them? Because I know that the children that I taught at Vista Nova, they failed mainstream. They failed the Vista Nova mainstream. So they were put into an extra learning year, learning enrichment year with me. And it was absolutely incredible how these children had opinions, how these children learned to read, how these children's confidence grew. So here they were all, their confidence was lower than their ankles, but with doing these activities and encouraging them to participate and encouraging them to share their ideas, they really just took off, and they were it was phenomenal. They have a rule, or they used to have a rule at Vista Nova, wherever a child was naughty, then they were taken off the bus. We used to have buses that would collect the children. And this one boy was always so naughty. But when he came into my class in February, the father phoned me and said, I don't know what you're doing, but my child is ready and dressed for school at 6 o'clock in the morning. And it was because we were doing these activities. It wasn't a right and wrong. It wasn't about punishing children for the wrong answers. We were asking why. Why did they think that? Why did they learn like that? Why did they do their sums like that? Why? And through the why, you can identify where they go, where they how you can improve their thinking. It was in the most incredible years of my teaching there, because I realized that we can take severely learning disabled children, and we can help them to read better and to comprehend better. Okay. Oh gosh. So, yes. I've been asked to put this in. We want your feedback. So from Macmillan, could you please click on the link below? Anita, I don't know if you can put that link in the chat room.
I'm going to try. I'm going to ask Ricky to just give it to me because I don't see it here, but I'll definitely put it in here because we'd love to have everyone's feedback. So let me quickly see if I can do this.
Super. So it would be lovely if you can give some feedback on this workshop. What did you, has it benefited you in any way? What have you learned from it? What can you take to your classroom? What would you like to do? What are you scared about perhaps doing? What is fearful for you? And try and put it in the feedback, and we will look at that and follow it up as well. And then I would just like to say these are my references. This first one is from the Progress in International Reading Literacy Study from 2016. Of course, the Scarborough issue, and the South African Department of Basic Education, the workbooks that we used, grade 4 workbooks, and thank you. Yes, thank you for participating. Are there any questions? Nobody asked. Yes.
Sorry, Janet, it's just me. I've spoken to Ricky now. It's impossible for me to put a link in. I'm just helping out with this meeting. So we will definitely send the feedback form to the participants via email. If they can please do it for us at some later stage, we'll be very thankful if they can just do the feedback for us when they receive the link.
Fabulous. Thanks, Anita. Thank you. Yes. Are there any questions, teachers, that you'd like me to clarify, or you're curious about? Please just talk out. You don't need to put your hands up.
I think you've done too good a job here, Janet. Everyone's so quiet. But I just want to say to you, I really think it was such an insightful workshop. And I really do think that all these activities will really also help us to really help the children with critical thinking from a very young age, which is absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much to you for all your insightful words. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. And I think the teachers are all going to get a copy of this PowerPoint, aren't they?
Yes.
Marvelous. Super. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and good luck. Enjoy your week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.